This is the new era. This is the new band, and we're unbreakable.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We can make him better than he was. Better, stronger, faster. Actually, better, stronger,
faster. Is that a
faster.
line from Starship Troopers or something?
No, it's actually the $1 Million Man.
$6 Million Man. I know that, and
I don't even know what that is.
We Brits don't do excitement, so this is the best you're gonna get.
Chris is bringing the noise today, apparently.
Speaking of vanilla,
it's just I don't understand why.
I don't think anyone does. I don't think Travis Green understands.
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust. This is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and CKNW.com. Here they are, fresh from folding towels, sharpening skates, and washing jock straps. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, as heard on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and Overtime Media. I am Chris Golden at Lightforce, joined in a small hot box. And boy, is it getting hot in here, by Anna Forsyth at aforsyth03 and Matt Lee at MattLee_61. Missing in action today is Adam Ovanel, Carter at AdamFOC, who, as I understand, is currently sailing the Seven Seas.
Dude, that thing is like a pirate ship. Did you see the picture of that?
Well, he only shared it to the hosts. Like, no one else who's listening has seen the ship.
So,
but yeah.
The long story short, and we can post it in Patreon chat afterwards, because shout out to Patreon chat. He's on a ship that is literally looks like a pirate ship with one of his grade 8 classes.
Yeah, it's a tall ship.
He's a brave dude.
Like, it's not as big. Like, did you guys see the Peruvian Navy or tall ship that was in town? Like, it was essentially moored in North Vancouver. It is a big tall ship, like full on, like, you know, galleon style pirate ship that Matt's referring to. The one that Adam's on, a little smaller, but still, it's like 2 or 3 full sails. It's crazy. And it's like some school trip?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's with his grade 8s.
Which also is surprising that he teaches grade 8s.
Hi,
Adam, students at Turn-In.
Do you think he's going to come back with a very long beard, like black beard?
Like
in
Long
1
John
week?
Silver type thing?
I don't know. It could happen. He grows facial hair pretty fast.
Because of all his rugged...
Once he hits puberty, it'll really come into form.
Oh, yeah, right.
Speaking of your beard, you've been working on it for, 2-3 years now?
I just shaved yesterday. Jerk.
Still, you probably have been working on the beard 2-3 days.
Yeah, fair enough.
Nice.
So it's been a while since we've been on the podcast, and it's good to be back since Japan. But obviously, since the last podcast and this podcast, we heard some pretty tragic news over that time. Jason Botchford, a friend of the show here on the C4 podcast, unfortunately and tragically passing away from an apparent heart failure. A lot of us here, I think, have all interacted with Jason Botchford in one form or another. I thought maybe now would be a good time to maybe go around and talk about some of those interactions you've had with Jason Botchford, who I don't think anyone here is going to doubt was a very great member of the Vancouver media in his time, and he had been here for almost, I want to say, over a decade at least. Chris, maybe with you, like, do you have anything that you remember of Jason Botchford?
Well, the first time I actually met and interacted with Jason Botchford was at the very beginnings of, like, Canucks social media.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that Jason got, it was Canucks social media and how it was the best medium to really connect with fans. In those early days, the fact that the Canucks brought in a bunch of sort of social media people, like JJ was there, Brian Lauritian from Canucks Corner from back in the day, Rebecca Bullitt, who's in the 604, like a bunch of other big names at the time.
The pioneers of Vancouver social media, so to speak.
Of which
Exactly.
Chris was one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old enough. I mean, I was around before, when rotary phones was how you tweeted stuff. Jason was sitting in front of us, and there was this, like, sort of thing like, oh, has Jason blocked you yet? Because that was what media did. Mm-hmm. They got on Twitter and they blocked all the bloggers because we lived in our, parents' basements and stuff like that. And Jason had not blocked me. In fact, he followed me. So I went down and, introduced myself. Richard Lote was there, Mosey. He introduced himself. And Jason actually carried on a really good conversation with us. He hadn't actually blocked anyone. But I remember speaking to him, and he was genuinely excited by, one, who we were, what we were doing, and the team was using social media to connect to its fans. So I'd like to claim credit that that's where Jason got the idea that he could do the same. But anytime I spoke to him at, like, season ticket holder events or events I went to, the most genuine guy. Yeah. And he would remember your name. Like, I met him maybe once or twice a year, and he knew me as Chris, Clay's friend.
Oh,
Who?
Yikes.
Which, okay, good or bad, but, you know, when we had him on, I shared the Botchford, the segment. Like, when we had him on the podcast, I mean, I think he was having more fun than we were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like,
It was such a great episode. Before my time on sleep, but I love listening to it.
For those who don't remember the Botchford, do you remember how he had made a Botchford guarantee, so to speak, that the Canucks would win some meaningless regular season game?
against the Edmonton Oilers.
Was it against Edmonton?
Edmonton Oilers.
And he guaranteed they would win, or he would get Spiza tattooed on his ass.
Yeah, that's right.
And if I remember correctly, did they not win that game in a shootout?
Well, the Canucks won. I know the shootout overtime, but the Canucks won like 5-4.
Yeah.
And it was like a back and forth game. And in the Provies, Jason had talked about like he was on our episode, and I was with the guys from Canucks Hockey Blog, and
He talked about how we were sharing that episode like wildfire.
The hell out of it. It was, and how he had made this promise, and had the Canucks actually lost, he's like, I would have had to have followed through with that, because I'm not the type of guy that makes guarantees and doesn't back them.
Oh, so do you think he would have followed through and got that tattoo?
I don't. I hope not. Would you want a Lucas Spiza tattoo?
No, but you know what?
God, no.
It would have been a funny story.
God, but that's the thing about Botch, that like when I heard of his passing, I heard before it was official, and I didn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
No, you got this wrong. There's no way. Like, it wasn't even something that I was interested in even pursuing. That couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anna, for you, what kind of memories do you have with Botchford? I know, you came in around 2011, of course, but that was seemingly at the height of Jason Botchford's career, so to speak.
Yeah. I know when I moved back to the UK, Canucks Twitter was what I had, and that's what kept me going when I was up at 3 a.m. watching this team losing. And people like Botch just made it really fun to be on Twitter. And I remember being in the middle of Wheelston Junction train station, which will mean nothing to most people, apart from maybe the Evans brothers. And I got a notification on my phone saying that Botch had followed me on Twitter, and I just remember freaking out. I thought it was so cool. And like more recently, I've had more interactions with him on Twitter. He's thrown me into the Athletes a bunch, and we met at the Rio a couple months ago, and I just remember being really impressed that when I met him, he was just that same dude, and snarky and fun and argumentative, but super knowledgeable and just so open. And all the stories that have come out since about how supportive he was to young writers just make you love the guy even more.
He was genuine.
So, yeah, he was just...
I think he was genuine, and he was unapologetic for being genuine too. And I think that is such a rare and admirable quality that you don't see very often in the media these days. Is that Botchford believed in whatever take it was, but he didn't apologize for taking that take. And I think for me that is really rare to see a media member say I was right, I was wrong, or there was never a gray area for Botch. And I think that's what I appreciate the most. And it's come to the point where in the days that he's been gone since, I do find myself asking on more than one occasion, what would Botchford say about this take? Or what would he say?
And I don't think that's a bad way to live your life. And if you're thinking about what Botch would say or do. I just loved that he was so open to learning. I mean, him raising up the work of Harmon, Boy Genius, and the last couple months is just, it's like a final gift to us all. But it's just amazing. The kid is 18 and he's so smart, but you can't imagine a lot of hockey media being open to that kind of learning like Botch was.
Not a lot. You could probably count on one hand the number of hockey media that would be open, not only to this new world, but helping elevate those that would replace them.
Totally.
I can't speak for media, Matt, but my perspective from the outside looking in on all forms of media is that you're always worried about the competition, the person that's going to take your job. That there are very few that do invest that energy and effort in making you be better.
Yeah, and you touched about there with Harmondale, and by the way, check out his piece on Jason Botchford in The Athletic if you do get the chance. Just absolutely outstanding, and that one really spoke to me. A story I'll share about Jason Botchford. A lot of you know that I got to cover the Vancouver Canucks for 1 year, and of course that was the John Tortorella year. And I remember the very first game I got to cover, and it was actually the Sharks playoff series 2013. The first round loss that we refused to acknowledge even happened, and it was game 1 of that series, and it was the post game scrum with Corey Schneider, who was the starting goaltender that night, and the Canucks had obviously lost that game, and the scrum was huge. Like every media, San Jose, Vancouver, they were all surrounding Corey Schneider. And there was no wiggle room for me, this like rookie green reporter, to get into that scrum. And in the corner, you see Jason Botchford, and he sees me like trying to find a way in. And he actually cleared a path in front of himself so that I could come in. Like if you ask Jason Botchford now, if you could ask him, he probably wouldn't even remember the story. But Jason Botchford actually made his way for like this rookie reporter who he had never met once in his life. And that just like speaks to how he was as a person. Like he didn't know me from Apple, right? Or whatever the phrase is. But it was like he was willing to help this rookie reporter get into the scrum when really he had no obligation to do so. He had no idea where I was from, what outlet it was. I could have been from San Jose media and he would have done that. And that is why I'm so heartened to see that he was so giving for the next future of Vancouver sports media here, because that is exactly who he was to me back then. It was how he lived his life until the very last days of his life. It's amazing to see what kind of a profound impact Jason Botchford had on a lot of people, and it's so great to see all these stories, and I'm heartbroken for his family, of course, and if you haven't had the chance to donate to the GoFundMe, please do so. I'm just so torn up by this, and Adam told me himself in the days that followed, he just, of all the Vancouver media, and I know it's kind of morbid to say, but of all Vancouver media, he could not imagine losing someone more impactful than Jason Botchford, and it's that kind of an impact that he had.
The one thing I think we'd be remiss to not mention is he was a devout father, a devout family man. Like when Baby Force was born, he was one of the people that, reached out and said, congratulations, I'm so excited for you. This is the most awesome experience. A lot of people did, but, when Jason showed up in my DMs, it was like, oh, what are we talking about? And often it was, how's the family? Hey, how you doing? Just.
That's really nice to hear. And yeah, as Matt said, absolutely devastated for his family. And
we've sort of yet to work out the details here, of course, but the C4 podcast will also be donating some of our Patreon funds to Jason Botchford's GoFundMe as well. But again, just a huge loss for the Vancouver sports media world. I honestly, it hasn't quite even sunk in still. It is like, it's going to feel almost foreign going into next year without Jason Botchford there to cover the Vancouver Canucks. It had come to the point where Jason Botchford was just representative of all Vancouver Canucks fans, and it's like we lost this guiding voice in our fandom, so to speak. And I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that the people whose lives he has touched over the years, they will carry on that torch. Like us here on the C4 podcast, we have that responsibility to carry on the torch of Jason Botchford. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do that.
Well said. Yeah, normally I'd talk about the Vancouver Canucks and all the good stuff that's happening with them, but quite frankly, they aren't obviously doing much of anything.
Can we talk about the playoffs instead?
Okay, fine.
How about we do that?
I haven't watched playoffs in a week because, by the way, I was on a cruise ship.
I was in Japan, Chris, and I was watching the playoffs.
Yeah, do you have televisions in Japan?
I have the internet. Have you heard of it?
Have you ever used the internet
Oh,
on a
wait,
cruise
never
ship?
mind.
Wow.
Yeah, damn it. He got me
Internet
there.
on boats is
Di-
not a great thing.
Satellite internet
It
that's
is a
dial-up
dicey process.
speed at
Yeah.
79
What's
cents
the deal with that?
US.
Don't you work for cruise ships and stuff like that?
Well,
Like, don't you?
I don't
Yeah.
work for cruise
How do we get
ships.
some Wi-Fi on there? Can we get Shaw on board?
Okay, so Princess, who I traveled on, the boat I was on, yeah, they'll have faster internet next week. Actually, no, this week. They're upgrading it.
We can talk about this on a future episode, by the way. But I watched all of Cobra Kai season 2 while in Japan.
I watched it on the cruise ship, but I had downloaded it previously
Oh, you're smart.
and took it on the iPad.
You are the Yoda to my.
Hey,
Never mind.
Off the rails here.
course.
Season 2, good?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was great.
Yeah.
We could talk about that again on a future episode, but it was great. And I know you I know you watched it the day it came out.
No comment.
I'm pretty sure, because I have the headset on here, I'm pretty sure I heard someone's stomach growl.
Yeah, that was my stomach.
Oh, was that you?
I heard it over here, and I
heard-
don't have a
So
headset.
I know,
your
I was-
stomach had more
I-
of an opinion than
Yeah,
that.
I was trying to leave space for just silence, and then my stomach just barged in.
Let's bring it back to the present.
Yeah.
Conference Finals, San Jose taking on the St. Louis Blues in Game 2 right now. I believe last time I checked, St. Louis was up 1-0 early in that one. And Boston Bruins up 2-0 in that series against the Carolina Hurricanes. I'll just say this. Can we just skip, like, a week and a half ahead and get to the San Jose Boston final? Because I feel like that's where we're headed right now.
Unfortunately, it seems that way.
Yeah, okay. Is it unfortunate? It's unfortunate because Boston's there, agree?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, someone, I can't remember who it was, said on Twitter, aren't you glad you cheered for the Leafs to lose to see the Bruins get to the
No.
Stanley Cup?
No,
I'm not going to apologize
no,
for that. Because
exactly.
it would be a frosty day in hell when I cheer for the Maple Leafs in the conference finals. I don't even want to put the Maple Leafs and conference finals together in one sentence.
Well,
Also,
I'm not
can I just
suggesting
say
cheering
the
for
Leafs
them.
are losers.
Well, they
They
are.
are losers.
You know.
They are
So
losers.
who's to say they would have got through another round?
Well, I'm not asking for the Leafs to get to the final. What I'm simply suggesting is that we, as a podcast, wholeheartedly wanted the Leafs to lose. It's a Toronto media thing. We needed it to end.
No, again,
Yeah.
I make no apologies for cheering for the
We-
Bruins.
we-
I would rather, and it pains me to say this, I would rather the Bruins be in 5 Stanley Cup finals than the Leafs getting into 1.
Okay?
That's a hard thing
I know
to
it's,
pull back
and
from.
that's
I don't
something
know.
that we're going to revisit again in 5 years, aren't we? I don't know. But like, as far as it goes, like, 2011 was 8 years ago. Let's get over it.
I'm not over it.
I'm not over it either, but I would never be over it if the Leafs ever get close to a Stanley
I just
Cup.
don't want to have to choose between those things. But yeah, I was cheering for the Leafs to lose rather than Bruins to win.
Yeah.
But
I make no
That's where it
apologies.
ends after round 1.
Okay, so getting to the actual conference finals. Bruins in 4? Or does Carolina get at
No,
least
Carolina next one, I reckon.
Yeah.
I mean, they say you're never in trouble until you lose at home. And Carolina has not lost at home. However, Game 2, they got dominated in.
Oh yeah.
Like, in the words of Botch, do your deeks.
No, there were no deeks being done. I don't see Carolina beating this Boston Bruins team that also has Brad Marchand, who can do no evil on it.
Yeah. Can we just talk about what a jerk he is still?
How is it that in that little fracas with Justin Williams, it was only Williams getting the penalty? Did you see the highlight of that?
Yes.
It boggled my mind that, like, how is that not at least offsetting?
Okay, well, the offsetting in the NHL only
I
occurs
know.
when the referees don't want to make an impact on the game.
Yeah, and the Dougie Hamilton one as well.
Hockey play.
Can I just say, though, in Game 1, Carolina, even though the scoreline might not reflect it, Carolina were in that game.
I believe they had
can't
the
speak to
lead
game
going
one.
into the third, did they not?
So they lost 5-2, but I think
They were up at one point,
Yeah,
though. I think
and-
Boston scored like 4 unanswered goals.
Yeah, and at least one of which was empty net, maybe 2.
And you know what? I don't want to walk down this path too far, but Brad Marchand is a serious contender for the Conn Smythe.
Oh, dear Lord.
Don't say that.
I know, it sucks. By the way, it would be worse than when Duncan Keith won the Conn Smythe. Like, far worse.
Yeah.
It would make Duncan Keith winning the Conn Smythe look like fun.
Okay, but
Tuukka Rask also there in my mind.
who else are we saying?
Well,
Logan Couture, if you're
Yeah.
rooting for San Jose.
well, no, like to me,
I think
San
San
Jose,
Jose has a
Boston.
couple.
Yeah, San Jose. I think there's some serious contenders, but I'm just sitting here thinking about the Bruins and who's had a better playoffs than like Brad Marchand's been a differentiator. Love him, hate him, whatever's going on doesn't really matter. He has been the differentiator in each game that he's.
Brent Burns would be another consideration, I think. I would give consideration to Joe Pavelski,
Yeah,
as
I was gonna
Nexus has
say,
just
like-
pointed out, but
And it
he missed almost
depends-
all of round 2, except for the last game against
The game that
Colorado.
mattered and came in and
I know,
made
but
a hell of a
when you
difference.
miss games like that, though, it does take some of it a hit. But depending
But
on what
if he
Pavelski
scores
does
a
in this
game-
series
yeah,
and in the
a
finals, of
game-winning
course,
goal,
we could
yeah.
revisit that
Well,
conversation.
and this sort of goes to the argument when you talk about being the most valuable player, like the Connor McDavid to Edmonton. When he wins most MVP, it's because without him, Edmonton is nothing, and they're nothing with him. So if you think about the best player in the playoffs, are we talking about just the cumulative effort of the series or the difference maker?
I think
that's
Chris
where I
is
think
right,
Pavelski, and it's not. Do they win that game without him? Maybe they do, but the fact that he can come in and he can make an immediate impact, that speaks a lot about being the most valuable player. But it's not like that's how it works. Media.
Yeah, I know. And I think if Colorado came through that series, we'd be talking about Nate McKinnon right now. Because he
no
was,
doubt.
Oh, yeah.
He
He's
was
good.
just great in that series. He was just
Can we get one of
wonderful.
those?
Yeah.
We could use a Nathan McKinnon in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Just one.
When's he a
Just
free
one.
agent?
I would take that.
Going to the Western Conference Final, are you guys thinking it's the Sharks, or is St.
Yeah.
Louis going to put up more of a fight, though, I think, than Carolina is for Boston?
Yes, but I don't think it'll make a difference. Like, San Jose is still going to win.
I think San Jose wins, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be like a San Jose in 6 kind of a situation.
Yeah, because St. Louis Blues are like anti-hockey. They bore teams to death.
You don't like their style of play?
I don't.
I think they can be all right to watch, but they're just such a deep team, which is what you need to have playoff
Yes,
success.
agreed. But it's just
San Jose is
so
definitely more
vanilla.
exciting
when
of the
you
two.
when you compare the two, and just San Jose's last series, first round and second round, were just amazing, brilliant series to watch.
See, I grew up in the trap era, so
anything's better than nothing.
Yeah, like when someone says they're anti-hockey, no, they're not. Like,
Yeah, Anna, you haven't seen bad hockey. You don't know.
No, I
bad
mean I
hockey.
have, but yeah, I know. I do take your point, but it's just when you have been watching San Jose this playoffs.
Oh yeah, I mean, imagine a Colorado St. Louis series, right? You've got skill versus St. Louis.
Skill versus will.
Well, that's the thing is, I don't think there's will on St. Louis.
We could go on about this forever. By the way, off the rails. I can't believe not one of you talked about my awesome Brent Burns dream. It was so
That was
vivid.
so
It was
weird.
disturbing. That's what it was.
It was a vivid dream. Okay,
no
so
kidding. What jersey was he wearing?
he was
again?
wearing a Sven Berchi
That's
Canucks
Sven
jersey.
Berchi, that's right.
I mean, I don't know why he had the Sven Berchi jersey. So for the record, Saturday night, I woke up and I had this really realistic Brent Burns dream. I think it was because I watched the San Jose St. Louis game earlier that day, and you saw him coming into the arena.
you eat
I don't
cheese
know what
right
it was.
before bed?
I did not eat cheese right before, but I saw Brent Burns, the big beard. He had his hair up in the man bun, and he was wearing a Sven Berchi Vancouver Canucks jersey, and he was riding the SkyTrain by himself past stadium. And I sat down next to him, and I asked him, "Hey Brent, I'm a huge fan. Would you ever come to Vancouver?" Don't even get me started on that one. And he said, "To be honest, no one wants to play for Vancouver." And then I said, "Oh, well, that sucks." And I was like, "Well, do you want to go for some beers? I'll take you up for some beers." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to." And we ended up crushing some beers
And
downtown.
one thing led to another.
One thing led to another, and Brent Burns and I engaged in a contract where he would sign over to play for the Canucks. That part didn't happen in the dream. It was amazing. It was a great dream.
Was the contract conjugal?
I don't know. It was consensual, though.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on. Yeah, I think San Jose, Boston in the Stanley Cup Finals, but I'm rooting really hard for Joe Thornton though to get that cup. I would love to see that.
And honestly,
As you remember, by the way, and remember when Botch talked about Joe Thornton and
when
scoring
he's
four goals.
Yeah.
See, this is how much, by the way, that Botch is in the public conscience these days. I remember these little Botch stories and stuff like that.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, that was like maybe the time when I was just like really completely won over by Botch and what he did, and I was just like, I am so in your corner on this.
And one more memory on Botch. I had you have seen Botchford animated before. I had never seen Jason Botchford more riled up and excited than when Torts stormed the Calgary locker room to try and fight Bob Hartley. He was going nuts watching that happen on TV.
Yeah.
I will always remember his face when that happens. It was like a kid in a candy store kind of a face. He's like, oh, this is really happening!
Speaking of Torts, broke in and started his press conference with condolences to the Botchford family.
And that's how much respect I think Botch had around the NHL.
Well, you would mention on the GoFundMe, Mike Gillis, dropped a donation.
He dropped a 500 burger.
That.
Yeah. As did Frankie Corrado.
Did he really?
He donated, yeah. Because he's a good dude.
There's a couple other omissions that we had noticed, but I haven't admittedly gone through the whole list, so I could be wrong on this. But
it's a long list.
It sounds like the family has yet to say anything or do anything about it, at least on the GoFundMe, I should say.
Well,
I can't remember if there was a tweet.
I think they did have a statement on it, but
I know the team had a statement on it, which I understand, but I don't know.
Oh, you mean the family as in the family?
Yes.
Not
not the family.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the family.
Yeah, I was confused. Your context sometimes can get to me there.
I have that effect on people. Yeah. How about we take a break? We'll come back with, I believe it's Rewind, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Canucks.
We were on Rewind.
We were on Rewind.
So
My bad.
it'll be the F word.
That's what it was. It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's actually been 3 weeks.
Probably 4 for you.
Well, if you factor in the time difference.
He liked to say the F word.
Oh, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't. You, out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
Okay, so the F word. So we've heard a little bit over on Twitter about how, from Ian McIntyre, by the way, one of Botch's favorite people, about how the Canucks will be aggressive over the offseason and in free agency. And I think we've talked about it a little bit in Discord, and people have talked about the name Tyler Myers, and some people have said Erik Karlsson, some have said Anton Strawman. I think that it's okay to be aggressive, but it is not okay to make moves for the sake of it being July 1st. And I would caution this as to say, you got Elias Pettersson, you got Brock Besser, who needs a new contract this season, you got Quinn Hughes in 2 years, who will need a new contract as well. Jim Benning has every right to be aggressive in free agency, but if he doesn't get the guy who is his plan A or his plan B, let's not go with the guy who is plan C. Sometimes, in this particular instance this summer, I'm of the opinion that doing nothing is also a good plan. And so if the Vancouver Canucks do not get, Ryan Dzingel or Anton Strawman or Anders Lee, some of those moves that would help this team on the wings for the next 3 to 4 years, it's okay. Let's not go out there and sign a player to a 7-year full no movement clause, because in 5 years, we're going to regret it like we regretted that Saturday night at the Roxy.
You make it sound like you're referring to a specific night that we're all involved in.
Oh, Chris knows what I'm talking about.
No, I've heard that. Okay, I don't need to hear that story again.
He talks like he made it to the Roxy.
I didn't make it to the Roxy.
Aw.
Anyway.
Weakling.
Yeah. Thoughts? I mean, am I right? Am I wrong? Feel free to put it to bed.
No, you are actually right. I mean, it's tempting. I know with this fan base literally screaming at you, do something. But we don't want deals like we had this past July 1st. Like, Anton Roussel seems to have panned out, but Beagle has not whatsoever. our good buddy Tim.
Beagle might hit that, 31-year-old breakout season.
Oh, yeah, that we've all heard of.
And he's good in the room.
You need guys
well,
that are good
as
in the
I
room.
suggested on Discord,
fill the good Branson
actual
void.
Beagle might be better in the room.
Okay.
That's no diss on Beagle, J Beagle, but we need a puppy. Come on. It's true. I forget what we're talking about. Oh, yeah, and also, to bring Botch into it again, he always trumpeted that 30 was old, and we just really need to hang on to that too. Like, do not tie down these 30-plus-year-old players to big contracts, because we will be paying down the line for it.
The go big part, I actually don't have a problem with, but it's truly going big. The problem is that I also understand that Louis Eriksson was defined as going big because we lost out on Milan Lucic, which...
Yeah, I mean, they both kind of busted, right? But
that theory that I say go big is blown out of the water by a real bad year. Like, arguably, who was out there saying, the Canucks had, and the Oilers signed bad deals? When those deals were signed, it's helping the market, but ultimately, that's what you had to pay to get these great players, these pivotal players, these players that will make your organization awesome.
So, I mean, let's talk about an ideal free agency period for you. Like, what is the best case scenario here for Jim Benning?
Okay, I'd truly like him to weaponize the cap space. Use it as a mechanism to bring players, not through free agency per se, but through other teams wanting to play in free agency and need to free up cap space.
So you're saying maybe
contracts.
Like a week before free agency, a team wants to make a big move, but they're hampered by contract X for player Y. Why not take on contract X and some players, picks, prospects as well?
Exactly. Like that's the space I think the Canucks should play in.
But has Jim Benning ever really shown a penchant for making those kinds of moves?
Oh no, it was totally a Mike Gillis move.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have the know-how.
Oh, I mean, I've often joked about it. Like, Jim Benning doesn't even know how to compute such a complex transaction.
Yeah, I mean, this is honest Jim Benning we're talking about. Like, in trying to play
like,
other teams.
In an ideal world, like, somehow the Canucks take on Ryan Callahan's contract from Tampa Bay and they get an extra pick or an extra prospect out of it. But I just don't see that happening. Nor do I see Ryan Callahan moving his no-trade clause.
Yeah, the thing is, we've got these players that don't want to move, and then other players don't necessarily want to move here.
So to answer your question, Chris, idealistically it makes sense, but realistically I just can't see that happening, unfortunately. I will say this. It is okay for Jim Benning to reach out to Artemi Panarin's people and offer them a 7-year contract, because Panarin, chances are players like that don't come around in free agency very often. Chances are slim they'll get Panarin, but at least you can say you tried. Failing that, maybe you reach out to Ryan Dzingel's people. See if 4 or 5 years could be on the table. If it's 7 years, thanks Ryan Dzingel, but you can try and pick one of your other suitors then. For me, it's just, let's make sensible moves at free agency, and let's not break the bank for, B-level players.
Well, we've talked about this.
Kofi Kingstons of the world.
We've talked about this on multiple episodes. Where is it that we see the Vancouver Canucks next season? Like, realistically, are they a playoff team next year?
Nope. I know you've
kind
of said...
making the right moves.
And this is me, again, Jason Botchford's voice. One of his last tweets where I'm on team playoffs for next season, so save me a seat, was one of his last tweets. And I think about that, and I think maybe they are a little bit further along the curve than we think.
So... then that, in my mind, leads you to the path you follow. If the Canucks are a playoff team next year, they now need to bring in playoff caliber talent.
And so, for me, like, realistically, if they're not a playoff team this upcoming season, they are for sure the season after.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's where I was getting at. In my mind, this is the season you weaponize the space. If there are 1-year deals that can be had to help other teams,
right?
Make their magic happen, you use that to your advantage. You
just want them to come off the books for the season after.
Right.
Yeah, but I do think Matt is right. There are players like Panarin who aren't going to be, as many players maybe in the next free agency. So sure, take a run at those players, but I do think it's a go big or go home mentality. If we don't land one of the top talents, then okay, I don't want to be handing out contracts for the sake of it.
Getting to the World Hockey Championships, then on that note, anyone noticing the quote-unquote chemistry between William Nylander and Elias Pettersson?
It's all to do with little things.
Yeah, Eriksson is the difference maker.
No,
it's fun to see.
If the Toronto Maple Leafs were interested in it, would you want William Nylander, or is this, as they say, a Matthias Weinhandel situation, Chris, with the Sedins in Weinhandel in Sweden?
Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are in the position of having to do something about their contracts. I think there's more validity to the possibility that Nylander is dealt, or through a sign and trade, some form of movement. If they bring him, they sign a long term, they're just tying themselves down, and really, I think in my mind, almost closing their window because they limit their own flexibility.
Well, Nylander is signed. It's Marner that he's
signed. Marner signed trade. But
because is it bad optics with Nylander if he, after all the kerfuffle, moves?
I think there's, contrary to what you hear in Toronto, I do think that there's some hurt feelings on that front, like that Nylander sat out for as long as he did, and that it took, until December to sign him.
Was he not worth what he wanted?
I'm not saying he's not worth what he wanted, but still, the fact that is that Nylander held out for that long to get that contract.
If I'm the Maple Leafs, I'm a little bit steamed.
So my point is that if Kyle Dubas is looking to make a move to alleviate some of that cap problems, William Nylander is, as a result, the easy target. He's not going to move Austin Matthews. He's not going to move Mitch Marner. He's not going to move Morgan Riley. Is it not just sensible that Nylander, by virtue of having one of the biggest cap hits on the team, has to go?
Yes, but then, actually, let's look at what the Canucks have to offer.
What's his?
Oh, it's not much.
No, right?
I'm not going to lie.
What's his contract?
This is in a hypothetical situation where the Canucks can pay 50 cents on the dollar for William Nylander.
But I don't think Toronto's in that position where they go down that path. We're not talking about Ehrhoff in San Jose.
No, I know, but I struggle to find teams that might have that much cap space compared to Vancouver and are willing to play ball with Toronto.
So, what's going for the Canucks?
Anna.
Yeah, I apologize for the sounds my body is making.
What?
Well, we're talking about Toronto Maple Leafs. It would upset just about anyone. The Vancouver Canucks have one thing going for them. You're right, cap space. But Toronto's not going to just go and say, here you go. We're not getting 50 cents or 75 cents on the dollar. Toronto's going to want dollar for dollar.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you this. I thought about this a little bit, but does a Nylander for Tyson Barrie deal make sense for Colorado and Toronto?
Straight up?
You probably have to add in between, but the Leafs could use another defenseman. The Avs could use more firepower up front.
Because they don't have enough already.
I'm just saying. Anyway. Just capping off the Vancouver Canucks conversation. Other terrible free agent signings, Wayne Simmons, Michael Furlan. I'm not interested in any of those moves.
No.
And those are the guys we're going to see.
But then when you say Wayne Simmons, honestly, Wayne Simmons was one of the players that I just loved watching 4 years ago. I would have loved him to play
in friggin' 2013, sure, but we're not in 2013.
He's probably one of my favorite players from 4 years ago, but I have no desire to see him.
I sort of presume that Furlan Orley has a stall in the dressing room with his name
probably an A on it too.
Yeah,
why don't we just give him the captaincy while we're at it.
But are those two guys not the players you expect Jim Benning to go and sign?
Yeah,
Michael Furlan particularly is a Jim Benning player, just through and through.
Reeks of a Jim Benning type of move. You know who would hate that move? Kevin Bieksa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
No love lost between those two.
Hey, yeah. Kevin Bieksa. Can I just say, if Kevin Bieksa and Murph made a podcast, I think I'd just explode.
Would you leave us for that?
If they invite me, yeah. Sorry. I would.
Wow.
Committing podultery, huh?
Man,
you're so proud of that.
That Anna Forsyth sure gets around.
I'll tell you what.
Canucks
why don't we just one up
here.
this, and why don't we just get juice on this podcast?
Yeah, Anna, work your magic.
Okay. I met him once.
Slide into those DMs.
Tell you what, why not?
I bought his wife's book, so Juice, come on. Fair's fair.
Anyway, it's been a long 3 weeks. The vacation's definitely over now.
Hey, where's Murph? Actually, speaking of which, we know you talked.
Well, he
to
was
Murph.
doing the Colorado games, right?
Yeah,
no,
he
but
was.
there's a seat that he could be sitting in right now. Like, to be honest,
Yeah,
let's
talk
have a
about
vote.
Hotbox, everyone.
If we had to vote Adam out of the island to have Murph in his place, agreed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
So-
unanimous. My friendship with Adam goes back for about a decade now.
Yeah, peace be with you, Adam.
But peace be with you, Adam. Take a break. We'll come back, talk more about the Vancouver Canucks next.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on it.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So, news today, Christopher.
Wait, there was news today?
There was news today, if you can believe it.
Wow. Did it have to do with like Troy from Richmond?
General Manager Jim Benning.
Oh, different news.
Telling Ben Kuzma earlier today that maybe the Nikolai Goldobin era is not over.
Okay, so I saw that, and it like blows my mind. So Nikolai Goldobin, you're gonna go and say, yeah, we're gonna put more money into, but like Godet, peace be with you.
You mean Gaunce?
Gaunce. Yeah, not Godet.
Holy.
Gaunce.
Hard skipped a beat there.
Like,
Chris
is in the off season. You are in the off season, sir.
Like, the fact that I even showed up today is a miracle. No, but Gaunce. Why is it that Gaunce, who is a serviceable player, who I think all of us saw a role.
Are you really comparing Brendan Gaunce to Nikolai Goldobin, though?
Yes, I am.
Really?
Okay, are you not looking at Goldobin and the fact that this guy couldn't even, get a job, waxing Travis Green's car?
Wow.
I would wax Travis Green's car.
I bet you would, but Goldobin couldn't even get that job. He was so deep in the doghouse. Like I'm not saying they're comparable players. It's just if I'm the Canucks, I really liked sort of what we were doing, and it's like peace be with you. But Goldobin,
if you think that Nikolai Goldobin had a very long look, Brendan Gaunce had more than enough opportunities to cement himself at least as a fourth-line center.
Gaunce has been in the organization
he was a fourth-line
since
center.
forever.
That was his level for sure.
But the problem is you can, and I say this with earnest, you can find a lot of Brendan Gaunces out there. It's sad but true.
It's true, but he was just a cheap version of...
I really did root for Brendan Gaunce as a person to cement his role on this team, but once we signed Jay Beagle, it was over for Brendan Gaunce.
I know. It's just like you look at Jay Beagle or Brendan Gaunce, like in terms of...
One has a Stanley Cup, one has a 2-goal game against the Chicago Blackhawks, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. But Jay Beagle is however many times the price of Brendan Gaunce.
And it's true.
Has he been
if
that
you ask
effective?
me, if the question here, Chris, was who would you rather have in terms of value to production, Brendan Gaunce or Jay Beagle, I would choose Brendan Gaunce. But the problem is we're not in head office. We don't make these moves.
Well, but okay, so to the point on Goldobin, though, is that what has the team shown us as their commitment to Nikolai Goldobin?
The problem with Goldobin, though, Chris, is that Goldobin has far more upside than a Brendan Gaunce.
Okay, I agree. I think to a person in this podcast, each one of us would be like, why is Goldobin not finding time on ice? Like at the end of the season, when it was garbage time, Goldobin couldn't even get a job waxing Travis Green's car, right?
What kind of wax is it, by the way?
Probably turtle wax.
I would choose turtle wax
on,
too.
wax off?
Whoa.
Did she just drop a Karate Kid reference?
What?
Man, she's been doing some Google searching.
Podcast is now 20 minutes of Cobra Kai analysis.
No. Rewind. No.
So, okay, what do I agree? I agree. Goldobin, far more upside, too. I would love to see the investment in Goldobin. It just blows my mind that you have your GM saying, oh, yeah, this guy, we've spent some time. We're going to continue to make the investment. All right, well, if you're going to make the investment, why the hell don't you play him?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the problem. Like I'm not suggesting it should be peace be with Goldobin, but I had already considered it. We talked about this 2 weeks ago about the rumor of him going to Russia, and we're like, yeah, if he goes, okay, see ya.
But here's the thing. I make no mistakes. If I were to put the odds on Nikolai Goldobin actually panning out as a, let's say, second line winger, I would say the odds are like 10%. But even with those 10% odds, the Canucks just have so little talent on the wings that I will take that 10% chance Goldobin pans out. And I want to fully find out if Goldobin will become something. Of course, yes, this year was pretty much a train wreck for Nikolai Goldobin developmentally. Is that a word? But, like, I need to fully know that we gave Goldobin every opportunity in the bag. And have they given him opportunities? Yes. But have they given them the full gamut of opportunities? I don't know. I want to believe it's just tough love that this has all been, and that at some point the light switch will turn on and Goldobin will snap his fingers like Thanos and say, "I am inevitable."
Okay, is there some spoiler alert there?
That doesn't count. If you have not watched Avengers Endgame by now, you are no longer able to.
I watched it last week finally,
and that was not, by the way, the biggest spoiler. Of the movie.
Well, you've seen it, Anna. Have you seen it?
No, I'm never going to.
Anna, you're wrong.
I'm never going to.
Matt,
so you can drop it.
It was perfect, wasn't it? Really? Oh man, I thought it was perfect.
Look, I watched Avengers Endgame in Japan. As we go off the rails for 2 minutes here,
we always go off the rails.
I watched Avengers Endgame in Japan. It was in English, by the way, for those of you who are going to ask. So I did understand the whole movie. I just feel, in a nutshell, that Avengers Endgame was overhyped to be like the greatest movie of all time. And of course it cannot be the greatest movie of all time.
That's Top Gun.
It cannot be Lord of the Rings.
God. Neither of those movies. Although I really want to see Top Gun, I have no interest in seeing any more Lord of the Rings.
Anyway, it was a good movie, probably bordering on great, but it was not like the biggest, highest grossing film of all time at the box office, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And
was it overhyped?
And it took all of my being not to find some stupid kid who would post a spoiler on social media.
Okay. I'll give you this. The fact that I was able to go as long as I did without being spoiled,
that's why we had to watch in Japan.
Right? Like, was amazing. Like, granted, I was on a cruise ship for a week, but, you know, there's people talking about things.
Yeah, you just talked about all the internet you didn't have.
Well, no, but there's people there's 1,000 people talking. I'm going into towns. Like, again, there's so many different ways to have it spoiled.
Yeah.
Someone yelling from shore to ship.
Oh, hey, I wouldn't put it past it. Anyhow.
Okay, so anyway, to get back to Nikolai Goldobin, he's more Thor in Endgame than he is Thor in Infinity War. Is that what you're trying to say?
Jesus, I forget what.
Okay, so Thor in... No, he's not Thor in Endgame. Nikolai Goldobin is the kid that we saw in Iron Man 3 helping out Tony Stark.
Well, you do see him in Endgame. Whoop, sorry.
I mean, like, guys,
look, if you've been listening this long, then you knew that it was going to happen. Sorry, that's my bad. But
I feel like...
Do you not get that reference?
I know what you're trying to say. Anyway, but Nikolai Goldobin, like, you agree that there is still a possibility he works out.
I agree.
And do the Canucks not owe it to themselves to at least try and find out completely, fully, and to the very end if Goldobin is going to be a thing or not?
Wait.
Yeah, but I can't stand it if Jim is just making talk here.
This is true. It could all be posturing. Like, we could easily see Nikolai Goldobin get signed to a new contract and then get shipped off in a package deal for a better Nikolai Goldobin.
See, okay, if the Canucks are willing to make the investment...
What's Mikhail Grigorenko doing these days? I don't know.
But what example do we have that the Canucks are actually going to go and give him a chance to make mistakes and grow with them? It's like make a mistake and, head to the doghouse for, a week or two.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see on Nikolai Goldobin. We got to move things along here.
I thought you were going to talk about Troy from Richmond scoring a goal.
We can talk about Troy from Richmond scoring a goal. By the way,
well done,
he scored 2 goals all year for Vancouver, and yet now he finds the back of the net in the World Hockey Championships, by the by.
It's all those little things.
It's freeing. It's his national pride.
I wasn't here, obviously, when Troy Stecher did get named to the World Hockey Championships, and to be honest, I don't know if you guys talked about it on the podcast.
We
did.
It is nice to see Troy Stecher get the call because I know that representing Canada has been like on his quote-unquote bucket list for a long time, and so it is cool to see him getting that kind of international recognition that he does actually, I feel, deserve, at least among Vancouver Canucks players. Louis Eriksson, he looks happy at the World Hockey Championships.
So this begs the question: is he unhappy?
It's not the coaching. Just stop. I know what you're thinking. It's not the coaching. Louis Eriksson, he has had the full gamut of chances.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I wonder if
Wow. That was a long one, Anna.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my stomach. I apologize.
It's all these sound effects that you normally have to pay good money for that we're just getting for free out of Anna.
Anywho,
just a classy lady.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what were we talking about before Anna's stomach so rudely interjected?
Louis Eriksson getting lots of chances.
Yes.
Which, again, is kind of stomach upsetting.
Should the Canucks just go out and get Patrick Hornqvist right now? Like, that would be a match made in heaven with Elias Pettersson. Talking about moves. I like Patrick Hornqvist. I like the cut of his jib. Did you see the drop pass he made?
No.
Oh.
No.
Pants?
Oh. It wasn't as much as that skate drop pass.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Imagine
Beauty.
Petey doing that in the NHL.
Okay, so when I watched that, I actually could not believe what I was seeing. I have never, in the many years that I've been watching hockey, probably the many years you've been watching hockey, Chris, have you ever seen someone with the cojones to pull off that move?
Well, okay, that specific move, no, but which was it, Daniel or Henrik that did the drop between the skates back?
I was there at that game.
Goal against the Flames.
I was there at that game, but even that didn't seem to hold. Like, Nylander didn't even score, but just the thought, like, what is the thought process that goes through your mind, Elias Pettersson, when you make a move like that? Like, what? You are going to use your foot to make a kick behind the skate pass, whatever the hell you call. Like, who thinks of that?
Well, Petey, obviously.
It was nice.
The kid, okay, the kid's got stones.
To quote Botch, he talked about how Pettersson had moves that we had never seen before. That was just a sampling of it. It blew my mind watching that. And I cannot wait to watch what Pettersson will do in season number 2. It's like an awesome Game of Thrones series watching him play.
So like the 80-minute episode.
Fewer people die. I hope. Apart from the people that he's undressing on the ice.
Well, they undress in Game of Thrones on the reg, so
that's true.
Not so much in the last few seasons.
I don't know.
This podcast
Game of Thrones also overhyped.
Really?
Agree.
Okay.
Whoa.
I've now seen half episodes of the last 2 weeks.
Okay, this season is not a good indicator of the series itself.
I would just like to say that I'm not cracking the whip as hard as you guys as I should be, but anyway. Anything else on the World Hockey Championships? Can we get back to Vancouver Canucks stuff here?
The fact that Great Britain has a team that's in the World Championship.
Move on. Ben Hutton talks still ongoing, I guess. Should we just sign him, or should we make sure that we avoid arbitration at least?
Sign him.
Because I think the arbitration award, like if it's over $4 million, you can't walk, or under $4 million, you can't walk away, or something like that. So I can't remember what the tweet was, but just get it done.
Still sign him.
Peace be with you to Derek Pouliot. You talked about Brendan Gaunce earlier, but is anyone?
Oh no.
No one is.
Is it an addition by subtraction kind of a thing?
Agree. Yep.
He was a contract taking up space.
Good guy, but
yeah, and he had a really promising start. But
is that the perfect scenario though? Right? There's no buyout required, no salary retention needed. It's a thanks for helping out.
Just a clean Brexit, if you will.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
No such thing.
Chris, want to wrap things up here on the C4 podcast?
Sure. Well, if you are looking for the C4 podcast online, the easiest way to find us is go to c4podcast.com. Now, you're already listening to us, but if you happen to have friends and family that are not, you need to go over and tell them to subscribe. The problem is you might not know what device they have. Well, that's okay. We're on every podcast platform that is out there. We're on iTunes, Spotify, gosh darn it, we're probably on Stitcher. Again, we're everywhere. The other thing, though, is
we're on Tinder, swipe right.
Skywriting.
Skywriting and Tinder.
Swipe right to us on Tinder if you see us. It's just a picture of Adam and that luscious
as it should
pirate beard he's growing.
It wouldn't be me, and I definitely wouldn't be Matt. I think Anna would be a good call, too.
Yeah, jeez. And the sausage fest up in here.
Well, I mean, the problem is we would be it's two different sort of demographics.
Take a moment
between you and Adam
to admire the way she said sausage. She said sausage. I met some people from Britain, by the way, in Japan. I told you about that.
Oh, yeah.
They were from Windsor.
Windsor? Were they dead posh?
BTW, did you follow the wall-to-wall coverage of the royal baby?
I did not.
Archie?
I just took in the name.
So, okay, the Archibald is the name, and
but it's not. It's Archie.
It is Archie.
Is it Archie?
Yeah, that's Archibald? The crazy thing. Archibald is what Archie is short for.
Yeah, I thought it was
but come on. They're not that royal.
Well, okay.
They should be.
They're not that royal.
Well, the reason I said Archibald is the bookies had it at some 150 to 1.
Right.
Like they actually
the real bookies had it at 60 to 1.
Okay.
#playnow.com. I am a company man.
So the point being is the fact that the name actually made the list is just blowing my mind.
But no, it is literally Archie, which is kind of upsetting.
Hey, let's move on here and talk about the C4 Podcast.
The point being is you can find us online. We're on Twitter at C4 Podcast.
And
we're
on
also at the C4 Podcast and on Tinder and on Facebook, every which way. So, Matt, any final words of wisdom for the listeners who are still listening in and haven't tuned us out because you keep spoiling Avengers Endgame?
I'm very happy to be back. I bought lactose-free milk over the weekend, and as someone who's somewhat lactose intolerant, I will keep you all abreast of if I'm feeling gassy or not.
Wow.
And you guys thought that my stomach making noises was going to be the worst part of this episode.
We will now proceed to live stream me after drinking a gallon of this lactose-free milk and seeing what happens.
Dear God.
Any additional final words before you bolt out of this room?
We are fully in off-season mode, by the way. Sorry, I know you said Anna. But of course the NHL draft coming up. So very excited.
Yeah, we'll get back on the rails soon with some draft talk coming up.
Well, as for me, I just can't wait till we start talking more about the Vancouver Titans, because at some point in time, we will, because we're going to continue going all off-season long.
We made it 54 minutes without having that become a thing again.
Yeah.
I forgot that they were there.
So, on behalf of the Missing in Action, Adam Ilvanel Carter at AdamFOC, Matt Lee at MattLee_61, Anna Forsyth at A4603, and myself, Chris Golden at Light Force. We're going to sign off the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast. It's heard on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and Overtime Media with 2 words. We're out.
Thanks for listening to the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com.